When a humble cafe manager, Emily Carter, overhears a devastating betrayal against powerful CEO Ethan Walker, she must risk everything to warn him. But loyalty, deception, and heartbreak collide, leaving Emily fighting not just for the truth, but for her own future. As their worlds unravel and trust is shattered, could love still find a way to rise from the ruins? Who is Emily, and how does an ordinary woman change a billionaire's life forever? Where are you watching from? Comment below and don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable stories of courage, love, and second chances. The corner cup smelled of roasted coffee beans and fresh pastries, a comforting contrast to the storm gathering outside. Emily Carter wiped down the counter for the third time, stealing glances at the man hunched over a cappuccino at the corner table. Ethan Walker, the magnetic CEO of Walker Enterprises, looked anything but invincible tonight. His usual confident posture was replaced by a worn slump, his tailored blazer wrinkled as if he'd been wrestling with more than just paperwork. She hesitated a moment, then grabbed the rag tighter and approached under the guise of cleaning nearby. "If I were you," Emily said quietly, "I wouldn't trust him so easily." Ethan lifted his head, meeting her gaze with eyes clouded in doubt. "Daniel's been my best friend since we were kids," he said, voice low and tense. "We built Walker Enterprises from scratch. You're telling me he's changing deals behind my back?" Emily shrugged, keeping her voice steady. "Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones we should watch most carefully." The cafe was nearly empty now, save for a few students tapping away on laptops in the corners. The storm outside beat softly against the windows, a rhythmic warning Emily couldn't ignore. Ethan ran a hand through his dark hair, a telltale sign of stress. "You sound pretty cynical for someone your age." "I'm 28, not 18, Emily said with a faint smile. "And working service jobs teaches you a lot about human nature. You see what people are really like when they think no one's paying attention." She wiped the table with deliberate slowness. "Look, I'm not saying dump your friend, just verify what he tells you. Trust, but confirm." Ethan chuckled softly, a genuine sound despite the tightness in his shoulders. "You give a lot of free advice for a barista." "Only to customers who tip well," she teased, feeling her cheeks warm when he smiled, really smiled, for the first time that evening. It was strange, the way their conversations had evolved. What had started 3 months ago with simple coffee orders, black with 2 sugars, sometimes an extra shot on rough days, had turned into long, meandering talks about leadership, innovation, even books they both loved. Emily often forgot that the man who asked her opinions about business strategies was the same one splashed across business magazines. Ethan checked his watch and sighed. "I should go. Big board meeting tomorrow." "To announce the Orion Technologies acquisition," Emily said without thinking. He laughed again, this time with real amusement. "You remember everything, don't you?" "Part of the job," she said lightly, collecting his empty cup. "Good luck tomorrow, and think about what I said." "I will," he promised, standing up and tossing a generous tip into the jar. "Thanks, Emily, for listening." She watched him go, tall and broad-shouldered, his figure blurring into the rainy night. With a sigh, she turned back to cleaning, until she heard a low, urgent voice from the dark corner booth. "He won't know what hit him," the voice said. Emily froze, peeking around the espresso machine. Daniel Brooks, Ethan's supposed best friend, sat with his back to her, phone pressed tight to his ear. "By the time he realizes what's happening with the Orion patents, the shares will already be transferred," Daniel murmured. "He's too trusting. Always has been. That's why this'll be so easy." Emily's heart pounded so loudly she was sure someone could hear it. Her hands trembled as she clutched the rag to her chest. She had only met Daniel once, but his voice was unmistakable, smooth, charming, dangerous underneath. As Daniel paid his bill and left without noticing her, Emily stood frozen behind the counter, torn between fear and outrage. Could she really get involved? Would Ethan believe her, a cafe manager, over his childhood friend? She stared out at the rain, feeling the weight of the decision settle heavy on her shoulders. By the time she locked up the cafe, she'd made up her mind. Tomorrow, she would tell Ethan everything. Whatever happened next, she couldn't stay silent. The morning sun barely warmed the sidewalk outside the corner cup, but inside, Emily felt like she was burning alive. She rehearsed her words as she poured lattes and wiped down tables, stealing glances at the door every time it chimed. Would Ethan even show up? Would he believe her if she told him what she'd heard? Or would she end up looking like some desperate nobody, trying to wedge herself into matters far beyond her world? At exactly 2:15 p.m., the bell above the door jingled. Ethan walked in, looking sharper than he had the night before, but the tension in his shoulders hadn't disappeared. Their eyes met across the room, and for a moment it felt like no one else existed. "The usual?" Emily asked, forcing a casual tone. "Please," he said, leaning on the counter. His glance swept over the cafe, noting the lull between lunch and the after-work rush. "Slow afternoon. Good for serious conversations," she said under her breath, sliding the finished drink toward him. He caught the edge in her voice. "Is everything okay?" "Not here," Emily said softly. "I get off at 6. Ethan nodded, something flickering in his eyes. "I'll be back." The hours crawled by like years. Every customer felt like a delay, every order like an obstacle between her and what she needed to do. When 6 finally arrived, Emily ripped off her apron with shaking fingers. Was she really about to risk everything on a man who might not even believe her? When the door opened, he was there, waiting. No expensive suit this time, just jeans and a button-down, but he still carried an air of command he couldn't shake off. "Ready?" he asked. They walked side by side toward a nearby park, the evening air crisp and sharp with the scent of coming rain. Emily led him to a bench overlooking a small pond where ducks drifted lazily across the water. She clasped her hands tightly in her lap, steadying herself. "I overheard something last night," she began, keeping her gaze on the rippling water. "After you left." Ethan tensed beside her, but he stayed silent. "It was Daniel," she continued. "He was on the phone, talking about transferring Orion's patents, about how you wouldn't see it coming because you're too trusting." She finally turned to him. His face was carved from stone, his eyes flat and unreadable. "You're sure it was Daniel?" he asked, voice low. "I'm positive. I've only met him once, but I'd recognize that voice anywhere." He stared at the pond, jaw tight, hands clenched on his knees. "Did he see you?" Emily shook her head. "No. He was tucked away in the back booth, didn't even glance at me when he left." Silence stretched between them, taut and uncomfortable. Emily felt suddenly very small, very foolish. What was she thinking? She was a barista, and he was a CEO. She had no place in his world, and certainly no right to tell him how to run his life. "I'm sorry if I overstepped," she said quietly, standing. After everything we talked about, I couldn't not tell you." "No," Ethan said, standing too, his voice rougher than before. "You did the right thing." He turned to face her fully, and for the first time tonight, she saw something raw in his eyes. Fear, betrayal, maybe even gratitude. "This explains some of the accounting irregularities we found this morning," he admitted. "Numbers that didn't add up in the Orion paperwork." Emily's breath caught. He believed her. "What will you do?" she asked. "I need proof," he said, voice stealing. "Before I confront him, quietly. If Daniel really is doing this, it's bigger than anything I imagined." Relief and sadness warred inside Emily. She hadn't wanted to be right. She hadn't wanted to be the person who shattered Ethan's trust in his oldest friend. "Why?" Ethan asked suddenly, his voice softer now. "Why tell me? You barely know me." Emily met his gaze, steady and sure. "Because it was the right thing to do," she said simply. "And because I think you're a good man who doesn't deserve to be betrayed." Something shifted in his expression, something that warmed the air between them. But before anything else could be said, his phone buzzed. He checked it, grimacing. "I have to go," he said. "Board emergency." He hesitated, then reached out, touching her hand lightly. "Thank you, Emily, for taking that risk." And then he was gone, leaving her standing in the golden light of the setting sun, heart pounding with fear, hope, and something she didn't dare name yet. Emily barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Daniel's voice again, smug and confident, planning Ethan's downfall as if it were already a done deal. By morning, a knot of anxiety had settled permanently in her chest, but her resolve remained sharp. She couldn't undo what she had done, and she wouldn't. Ethan deserved to know the truth, no matter how it unraveled his world. At the cafe, Emily moved on autopilot, brewing coffee and serving pastries, while her mind replayed every word, every nuance of the conversation she had overheard. At least she had done what she could. The rest was in Ethan's hands now. Around noon, as she was refilling the pastry case, the bell above the door jingled. But it wasn't Ethan. Instead, a woman walked in, tall, poised, with the same striking blue eyes as Ethan, though softer somehow. She wore jeans and a crisp white blouse under a tailored jacket, looking both casual and expensive. "Emily Carter?" the woman asked, stepping closer. "Yes?" Emily wiped her hands on her apron, wary. "I'm Sophie Walker," she said, offering a hand. "Ethan's sister." Relief and confusion warred in Emily's mind. She shook Sophie's hand automatically. "Is everything okay?" Sophie's smile was tight. "No, not really. Can we talk?" They settled at a back table where the afternoon sun slanted across the floor in golden stripes. Sophie leaned in, her voice low. "Ethan told me what you overheard, and I believe you." Emily blinked, stunned. "You do?" Sophie nodded. "Daniel's been different lately, more secretive, and there have been whispers, people leaving the company, investors hesitating. I've been worried, but I didn't have proof. Until now." A flicker of hope lit in Emily's chest. "Then we have to do something." "We already are," Sophie said, her expression fierce. "I've started digging into Daniel's financials, quietly. And you." She paused, studying Emily carefully. "You're important in this. You heard it firsthand, but we'll need more." Emily hesitated. "What can I do?" Sophie smiled grimly. "Help me gather evidence." Over the next 2 days, Emily stepped into a world she'd only seen in movies. Stealth meetings in cafes, whispered phone calls, late nights cross-referencing documents. Sophie managed to slip past Walker Enterprises' increasingly paranoid security protocols. Emily used her network of cafe friends and servers across the city, people who were invisible to the corporate elite, but heard everything. A server at the Riverview Grill remembered seeing Daniel having a suspicious lunch meeting with a known Apex Technologies executive. A barista at another cafe had overheard Daniel discussing aggressive strategies that didn't sound legal. Piece by piece, a picture formed of betrayal, greed, and a plan that could destroy Ethan's company overnight. It was risky, thrilling, and terrifying. Emily felt like she was balancing on the edge of a knife. But she couldn't walk away. Not when Ethan's future was at stake. Not when her heart ached every time she thought of the way he had looked at her, like she was the only person he could trust in a world full of lies. On Saturday night, 2 days before the crucial board meeting, Emily and Sophie met again, this time in Sophie's apartment overlooking the city skyline. The air was electric with urgency as they spread documents and printouts across the dining table. "We have enough," Sophie said finally, tapping a thick folder. "Enough to blow Daniel's scheme wide open." "Will Ethan listen?" Emily asked quietly. Sophie's gaze softened. "He will. He has to." Emily took a deep breath. "Then we need to tell him. Now." "Security's tight at Walker Enterprises," Sophie warned. "He might not even let us near the building." "Then we don't ask," Emily said, standing. "We show up. We make him listen." Sophie grinned, fierce and proud. "I like you." Together, they gathered the evidence, steeled their nerves, and headed into the night. The fate of Walker Enterprises, and maybe something even more precious, hung in the balance. Sunday night bled into Monday morning without mercy. Emily and Sophie sat silently in the corner of Walker Enterprises' executive floor, hearts pounding as the clock ticked toward 9 a.m. Through the glass walls of the main conference room, they could see board members filtering in, their expressions sharp and expectant. At the head of the table, Ethan stood tall and composed, the thick folder they had delivered resting in front of him like a loaded weapon. Daniel entered last, flashing his trademark easy smile, the one that had fooled so many for so long. Emily's stomach twisted as she watched him saunter to his seat, completely unaware that his empire of lies was about to collapse. The meeting began. Voices rose and fell behind the glass, but Emily couldn't hear the words, only the tone, professional at first, then confused, then rising into alarm. And then Ethan stood, papers in hand, voice cutting clear even through the insulated walls. Daniel's face changed in real time, from confidence to confusion to anger to something far uglier. Security arrived swiftly, as if it had been prearranged. 2 guards flanked Daniel, who rose from his seat with a sneer. His gaze found Emily standing beyond the glass, and for one chilling moment he smiled. Not the charming smile he showed the world, but something hollow and hateful. Then he was led away, his departure met with stunned silence. Ethan remained standing as the board voted unanimously to remove Daniel from his position and launch a full internal audit. It was over. Daniel Brooks, once the golden boy of Walker Enterprises, was finished. Emily didn't stay to celebrate. She slipped away, heart heavy. She hadn't done this for applause. She had done it because it was right, because someone had to protect Ethan when he couldn't see the threat looming in front of him. By the time Ethan emerged from the building, victorious but visibly drained, Emily was already gone. In the following days, Emily threw herself into rebuilding her own life. She met with realtors, toured tiny storefronts, and sketched out business plans late into the night. Sophie pulled every string she could to help Emily secure a small business loan, but it was Emily's vision, her passion, that carried the dream forward. The Lantern Cafe was born from ashes, an empty space with creaky floors and peeling paint, but to Emily, it was a cathedral. She painted the walls herself, hired staff who believed in community, and sourced everything locally, from the coffee beans to the reclaimed wood tables. She hadn't heard a word from Ethan. Not a call, not a text, not a single sign. Maybe it was better this way. He belonged to a world of private jets and billion-dollar mergers. She belonged here, in the quiet hum of a neighborhood cafe, where trust was earned over time, one small kindness at a time. Still, every night, as she locked up, she wondered if he ever thought of her. If he regretted letting her walk away without a word. 6 weeks after Daniel's fall, on the night before the Lantern Cafe's soft opening, Emily stood alone in the empty shop, breathing in the scent of fresh paint and new beginnings. She should have been proud. She was proud. But somewhere deep down, there was a hollow ache she couldn't shake. The door chimed. She turned, expecting Lily or a late delivery, and froze. Ethan stood there, looking heartbreakingly real in jeans and a dark jacket, a small box clutched awkwardly in his hands. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said, voice rough with emotion, "You built this." She nodded, unable to find her voice. "It's incredible," he said, stepping closer. "Just like you." Emily blinked back sudden tears. "Why are you here, Ethan?" He swallowed hard. "Because I made the biggest mistake of my life, letting you think you didn't matter. You mattered, Emily. You still do." He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver key. "A key?" she whispered. "A key to a future," he said simply. "If you'll let me be part of it." The ache inside her cracked open, replaced by something warmer, something stronger. She stepped forward, reached for his hand, and didn't let go. The Lantern Cafe's soft opening was a blur of laughter, clinking coffee cups, and the rich aroma of espresso filling the air. Emily moved through the crowd, greeting neighbors, friends, and curious newcomers, her heart swelling with every compliment and warm smile. She caught glimpses of Ethan across the room, helping clear a table here, chatting with a customer there, blending into her world as if he'd always belonged. By evening, as the last guests trickled out and the sun dipped low beyond the city skyline, Emily stood behind the counter, wiping down the polished wood surface. Ethan leaned against it, watching her with a look that made her chest ache. "You did it," he said quietly, pride thick in his voice. "No," she corrected, smiling. "We did it." They locked up together, stepping into the cool night air, the city buzzing around them but feeling strangely far away. They walked without speaking, their hands brushing occasionally, electric with unspoken promises. At the small park where they had first sat weeks ago, Ethan tugged her gently to a stop beneath a street lamp. The light painted him in gold and shadow, his blue eyes clear and serious. "I meant it, you know," he said, pulling something from his pocket, a second, smaller box. Emily's breath caught. "You gave me back more than my company," he continued. "You gave me back my faith, in people, in second chances, in myself." He opened the box to reveal a ring. Simple, elegant, timeless. "I don't want a life where you're just part of it. I want a life we build together, from the ground up, like you built this cafe. Brick by brick, dream by dream." Her hands trembled as he sank to one knee, the streetlight catching in the silver band. "Emily Carter," he said, voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, "will you marry me?" Time seemed to freeze around them, the hum of distant traffic, the rustle of the breeze through autumn leaves, all falling away until there was only Ethan, kneeling before her, offering everything. Tears blurred her vision as she laughed softly, the sound shaky but full of joy. "Yes," she whispered, then stronger. Yes. Ethan slid the ring onto her finger and rose, pulling her into his arms. The kiss they shared was different from all the ones before. Deeper, anchored by everything they had fought through, everything they had survived together. When they finally pulled apart, Emily rested her forehead against his. "I never thought this would be my life," she whispered. "Neither did I," he said, smiling against her skin. "But I wouldn't change a thing." The months that followed were a whirlwind. Their wedding, held in the very park where he had proposed, was small but filled with genuine laughter and tears. Friends, family, and even some regulars from the Lantern Cafe gathered to celebrate not just their union, but the incredible journey that had led them here. Ethan returned to lead Walker Enterprises, but on new terms, ones built on transparency, collaboration, and a fierce dedication to ethical leadership. Sophie took a larger role too, becoming a vital force behind the company's rebirth. Emily's cafe thrived, quickly becoming a beloved cornerstone of the neighborhood. They expanded slowly, carefully, one new location at a time, always keeping the same community-first spirit that had made the original so special. One crisp fall morning, almost exactly a year after the cafe's opening, Emily stood behind the counter, her hands absent-mindedly resting on her now slightly rounded belly. The baby was due in spring, a new chapter waiting just on the horizon. Ethan entered the cafe, shaking rain from his hair, carrying 2 coffees and a mischievous smile. "Business meeting?" he teased, handing her a cup. "Something like that," she said, laughing. They sat by the window, watching the world bustle by outside, the lantern's soft light casting a golden glow around them. "I still can't believe it sometimes," Emily admitted, tracing the rim of her cup. "How much can change in a year?" Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "It changed because you took a risk, because you believed in something bigger than fear." She smiled, tears stinging her eyes, but this time they were happy ones. "I believed in you," she said simply. "And I," he whispered, squeezing her hand, "will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." Outside, the world spun on. But inside the Lantern Cafe, surrounded by laughter, love, and the rich aroma of dreams realized, Emily knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. At its heart, this story reminds us that true loyalty isn't about blind trust. It's about having the courage to see people for who they truly are, even when it's painful. Emily's bravery in speaking the truth, even when she risked everything, shows us that integrity sometimes demands standing alone before it leads to standing together. Ethan's journey reveals that strength doesn't lie in building walls to protect yourself. It lies in trusting the right people to stand with you. In life, betrayal may come from those we least expect, but redemption and love can also come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it's the quiet voices, the ones we almost overlook, that carry the wisdom we need most. And sometimes, the greatest success isn't found in fortunes or titles, but in the people who choose to believe in us when we doubt ourselves. Trust, resilience, and love are built not in moments of comfort, but through trials, risks, and acts of courage. Emily and Ethan's story teaches us that true partnerships, whether in life or business, are grounded not in appearances, but in character, compassion, and shared dreams. As you reflect on this story, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and let us know. And if you enjoyed this journey of trust, betrayal, and second chances, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful and heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to share even more with you.